Okay, hi there, Yerds. Another episode of Yearbook University talking about design. This should be the second part of your homework about watching different levels of white space. And now we're going to be talking about proximity. So proximity is when we think about arranging things based on their relation to each other. So when you think proximity, similar elements should be placed close together. Just like the people that you're closest with, you hang out with more. You're tighter together. Strangers, you don't get very near. Like, you give a lot of space between you and a stranger, but you and your boyfriend or your girlfriend, you sit right next to, you snuggle, that sort of stuff. I'm gonna sneeze. Bless me. Okay. That being said, things that are very different as far as content should be placed further apart. So this kind of knowledge, this rule, this practice is talking about proximity. So proximity done well, tight spacing between related photos, words, or both. Expanded spacing, like we talked about in the previous video, different levels of white space. Think the tighter spacing with things that are related. Words, things like that. More open spacing for things that are unrelated. So the three levels of white space, just to review: tight, which is 1 point of space between elements that are close related or less, like 0 to 3 points. Standard is 1/3 of a pica to a whole pica, which is 1/6 of an inch. And that's kind of like a mediocre spacing. So things that are somewhat similar or different, sort of kind of, those can be using the standard level of spacing. And then expanded for when you really need to have very different things have a lot of breathing room, because they are just completely different topics. They are different people. We need to give them space. Okay, so looking back at that spread again that I showed you previously, here we have up in this top right module, we have things that are very similar. So we have tight spacing in between each one of these photos, real tight, to get the idea that these are all things that are related as far as content coverage wise. Same thing, we've got standard spacing between the image and the font or the text that goes with that image. So we have the two tightest levels of spacing. That being said, when we switch content, we move away from this module of this specific topic, you can see that the designer has introduced expanded spacing, or level 3, to really let us know as the viewer that this is completely unrelated to this or this. All right, so when we look at designing a spread, we really have to look at the levels of spacing and the proximity in relation to how the things are related or unrelated. If they're tied together, they should be essentially tied together with white space. If they're unrelated, we need to make sure that they look like they're unrelated with the white space. Okay, so tight, 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 standard, standard, expanded, expanded. All right, so things to keep in mind. Do keep captions next to the corresponding images that they go with. Use either tight or standard spacing when putting your caption next to your picture. Okay? So it needs to make sense that A goes with A, B goes with B. It can't be like A's picture is over here and A's caption is way over here. They have to be next to each other. Think about your textbooks. The caption is always kind of close by the photo that it goes with. Place the headline close to the feature story using tight or standard spacing. Again, keep the related content together. Use tight spacing when you make photo strips, like a bunch of little photos all next to each other. Use tight spacing because, again, those all relate to each other and we want them to look like a cohesive kind of storyline. Don't stick elements in the corner or middle to fill that empty space. Let it go. Have it tied in with something else. Don't stick elements in the corner of your spread, period. It looks really weird. It should be grounded towards the center. Don't group elements that don't belong together. If they aren't related, separate them with that expanded space. They can go on the spread if they don't fit in with the other content. You just need to make sure that you as the designer say, okay, this is completely separate. I'm going to put it on the same page, but so you know, reader, that it's separate, I'm going to put a big chunk of white space so that visually cues you that it's a separate topic. Okay, here's some examples of proximity used well. So you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different topics going on this one page. But they're using proximity really well and also color blocks to help define each topic and what kind of zone you are in. Related pictures tied together. As they get a little more unrelated, we got a space right here for the gutter, but you can see that they open up a little bit more. Again, we're using spacing to really define each one of these topics. Personally, I don't love this spread. There's a lot going on for me, and they have drop shadows on type. Okay, so example of proximity. Again, I like this one a lot better. We've got some larger expanded spacing in between kind of these four sort of zones that are happening. We've got a very strong dominant photo going on down here. We got room for the gutter, strong eye line, even though the eye line's down the middle. But again, you can see that they're kind of keeping like these different zones happening with the spacing. Tighter spacing, this is standard in between the photos of each one of these packages, just so we know what goes with what. Alright, nerds, that's the second video for this topic. Hopefully I moved along quickly and you got some great notes about the do's and don'ts of proximity and spacing. And I will be looking forward to checking your notes and seeing how it influences your edits to your practice spreads. Thanks guys. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.